Yeah. Great to see everyone here.
Mary Beth, do you remember that
July
song?
9th. Thank you
Blinded
so
by
much
the light?
for taking
Yeah,
the time
yeah.
to come
I'm blinded by the light.
and tell us what it is you would like to see in Islington Center. So we're calling this our visioning session, and it came out of the Islington Center task force meetings. Many of you have attended some of those meetings in the past, and those who haven't, I hope you'll attend them in the future. It's an opportunity for even more public input. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about the task force to let you know how we got to where we are and then where we're going from here. And then we're going to do a group exercise at all of your tables. So the Islington Center Task Force was established by the Board of Selectmen last September, and the purpose is to allow for more extensive public discussion than could otherwise be had at a planning board meeting or a Board of Selectmen meeting or some meeting where decisions are going to be made. This gives us an opportunity to have a much more robust discussion, to have issues considered and discussed in greater detail for a longer period of time, and to make sure that we include everyone who has a thought to express. They have a place to go and an opportunity to discuss issues that are important to them. The task force's first step was to define the village boundaries. So what is Islington Center? Islington is a rather undefined section of Westwood. Islington Center, for the purposes of the task force, is the area that's from Fairview on the north to Clabber Tree on the south, on either side of Washington Street, going down School Street to the west as far as the commercial district goes, and going down East Street as far as the East Street Bridge. So that's the area that the task force will concentrate its efforts on. The next thing the board did was actually get out there and look at Islington Center to see what it looks like. So here's a view looking north from the southern boundary at Clabber Tree Street, and here's a view looking south from the northern boundary at Fairview. They identified the existing properties, the different uses in those properties, and the building conditions. So here you see some of the more significant buildings in Islington. There's the Wentworth Hall, which is the home of our Islington Branch Library. There's the, it's often called the Colonial Building or Cafe Diva Building. There's the Islington Community Center, Morrison Park, and then I include a slide of gas station at 390 Washington Street because that is before the planning board right now with a proposal to redevelop that site. The task force also weighed in on a recent proposal that received approval from the planning board. This is a rendering of 301 through 315 Washington Street here, and 317 through 323 Washington Street on the left side of the picture. That was a planning board application for a FMUOD, Flexible Multiple Use Overlay District, special permit, and the proposed new building will include 12 apartments on 2 floors above about 4,600, I think, square feet of commercial space. The Islington Task Force also put out a survey. Many of you, I'm sure, have responded to that survey. It was online. It was open from June 15th through June 30th. We actually kept it open even longer than that. As late as today, I've received some survey responses, and the results will be tabulated and posted to the website on the 30th of July, so everyone will have an opportunity to see what the results of that survey are. They'll also be sent to the Westwood Press, and they will be discussed at a future task force meeting. If anyone wants to download the copy of the results of the survey, they will be posted on the webpage. If you go to the land use section, look at the planning board, you'll see an Islington Center page that you can open up, and you'll see the results on that page. If you have any problems with that, just give me or Abby McCabe or Janice Barber a call. The Islington Task Force also developed an inventory of the vacant and underutilized commercial spaces in Islington, and there are a significant number of them, and some of them are the more prominent buildings. At the very southern end of the area, the former K&S printing place has been vacant for, I think, at least 15 years at this point. It was the former concrete cutting building is also vacant. The tailor shop in School Street is the most recent building that has gone empty. And there's actually a vacant space. When I created this slide, there was a vacant space in the building that houses Islington Pizza and Wild Blossom. There's a business that is proposing to open there very soon. The next thing the Islington Task Force did was issue a request for proposals, an RFP for Islington Center properties. There are 4 properties in Islington Center that are owned by the town, and the task force sent out a request for proposals to get creative solutions for what could be done in Islington to better the area using those parcels. The task force received 1 proposal from Petruzziello Properties LLC. That is the owner of the property that received planning board approval here. That property owner owns all of the former Magaletta properties. Those are the properties on either side of School Street, as well as CVS and Crown Cleaners building, and the tailor shop on School Street as well. So that proposal will be considered by the task force at a meeting on September 8th. For tonight's meeting, I'm really not going to discuss the details of the proposal. I just want to go over it very quickly so that everyone's aware that it's out there. But if you have any comments specific to that proposal, if you want to get more information on it, come to the task force meeting on September 8th. So this is just a couple of slides that show you what is proposed in that proposal from Petruzziello Properties. This is a rendering of a building that's proposed for the corner of School Street and Washington Street. This is School Street here, this is Washington Street. It's proposed to be a mixed-use building. The initial proposal, which will be reviewed by the task force and then by the selectmen and certainly change, but the original proposal calls for, I believe it's approximately 8,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor. And I don't know if that was 28 apartments in it. Here's another view of that building looking at it from the Washington Street side. Here's another building they're proposing. This is Wentworth Hall, the Islington Branch Library. The proposal calls for moving that building to the site of the existing CVS and putting a large addition on the back to house MMO and about a 5,000 square foot community center. There's also a proposal for a CVS building. This is proposed to be on the corner of East Street in Washington, and I believe that perspective is looking at the Washington Street side of the building. And here's the plan with those buildings removed. So what I've done here is I've taken the proposal plan that was submitted and I've erased everything on the 2 sections of land where the proponent has proposed development. And what I'd like to do tonight is invite everyone here to put yourselves in the place of the developer and to pretend that you have control over the land that the developer owns and the land that the town owns, and tell us what it is you would see. What would you do with that area if you could do anything you want? So we're looking for proposals from residents tonight. What would you do if you had complete control of the town parcels and the developer's parcels? And that's what all those maps on your table are for, to help you have that discussion. So we're going to work in small groups. Each table will be a group. You're going to use the plans and all the materials that are on those tables to develop and design your ideal Islington Center. So there are 3 steps we'd like you to follow. First, identify opportunities and constraints for development. Next, share ideas and imagine possibilities for that land. And then step 3, and this is always the toughest, is balance the economic factors to make a realistic proposal. Then we're going to ask each group to share its Islington Center plan with all of us that are attending here tonight. So for step 1, identifying the opportunities and constraints, I'd like each of you at your table to have discussions. Some of the questions that might help you to address this step are, what are the physical limitations of the properties and the buffer zones around them? Are there public-private rights of way or easements across them that you're aware of? Are there grading issues? You have grading plans on your table to show you where the land is sloped. Most of you are probably very familiar with these sites. For instance, the municipal lot is flat in the front and rises to a substantial grade in the back. Are there existing structures, and can those structures be retained, or do those structures have to be demolished? Are there utilities available to the sites? Is there ample parking for the plan that you are going to propose? Are there traffic concerns associated with that? If you're proposing a car wash, for instance, that would bring significant traffic to the area. Probably wouldn't work too well. Pedestrian and bicycle concerns. Are you designing the uses on your land and situating the buildings in such a way that you address bicycle and pedestrian concerns, or do you make them worse? And are you willing property owners? Are you willing to make changes in this area to spend the funds that are necessary to make the changes. Step 2, share your ideas and imagine every possibility that you've ever thought of for this area. There's no wrong answer. We're open to any ideas. What attributes would you maintain in Islington Center? What areas do you think need to be changed? What are desired commercial uses? Retail, restaurant, office? What are desired residential uses, if any? Single family, multifamily? And I'd add to that apartments or condos, or no residential uses. Community facilities. Do you believe public facilities belong in Islington Center? Nonprofit facilities? Should they stay? Where should they go? How large should they be? Think about the scale of the buildings, the height of buildings, how big they are, the design, the materials. These are all things that go into a developer's proposal. So you're the developer tonight. Think about those ideas. Parking facilities. Where would they go? How many parking spaces would you need? Abby and I will be walking around to your tables and we can help you discuss that. There are actually formulas depending on how large a building is and what the use is. We tell you how many parking spaces they would need. Open space. Do you need more playgrounds, fields, sitting areas? Should there be sidewalks and bicycle lanes added? Street trees, landscape improvements, furnishings. These are all thoughts that you can put on those pages and tell us what you would like to see in Islington Center. Then the third step, and I think this is the hardest, is thinking about how to balance the economic factors. Questions you have to think about is the cost of the land, the cost of construction, how much rental income you could receive as the developer. What would be your maintenance cost for the different buildings, either the developer's building or the town's building? Public service costs, think about that. Different uses have different public service costs. For instance, we all know that residential structures, especially family residential structures, bring children that have school costs involved. Senior housing sometimes has an increase in public safety needs because they're more ambulance runs. So there's things to think about. Tax revenue, balancing the tax revenue between commercial and residential. That's always important. The town strives to have a stable commercial tax base to prevent residential taxes from increasing significantly. What are the effects of the development you're proposing on nearby properties? I think that's a very important one to everyone who's here today. And then the last question, financing. Is the proposal you're putting together something that you could get a bank to finance? So these are all the questions I'd like you to think about in your small groups, to discuss among yourselves, and see what creative solutions you can come up with. Before I get to this, I just want to explain how we will do this. So you have maps on the table. You have some tracing paper if you want to just draw freehand what you have in mind, but you also have puzzle pieces. So what I've done is I've cut out shapes of some of the existing buildings at Islington Center. I have shapes for the ICC, for Wentworth Hall, for the Blue Heart Tavern, and then I have some just general buildings that are sized approximately what a commercial structure would be. If you think that you want to see all community space, or any of the spaces you want to be community use the blue shapes. So for instance, find the ICC, and if you want that building to stay in community use, and you want that building on your plan, use the blue part. It's like this. If you want to be commercial, use the orange one. If you want to be residential, use the yellow. So we'll go around, we'll walk around and explain this some more to you. That's the general way you would do it. So that they're scaled, these cutouts are scaled, so it helps you move them around and see what things look like on the plan. If that doesn't work for you, you're welcome to drive. And if you just want to talk about it and not actually do the map, that's fine too. So before Abby and I come around to see what questions you have and look around, I do want to just point out what our schedule is going forward, because these dates are important and I want to make sure you have them. The Islington Task Force, I already mentioned, will meet to discuss the Petruzziello proposal on September 8th. If you're interested in discussing that and weighing in on that proposal, in favor or opposed, please come to that meeting. If you're unable to make it, please send me your comments in email or by a letter, and I'll make sure they get to the task force. The task force will meet again on September 15th, and that time they will have a formal proposal from the applicant. So when they meet on the 8th, they're discussing the pros and cons of the written proposal. They'll meet again on the 15th, and then they will be speaking with the developer and sharing with them their ideas of how the proposal could be made better, if it could. And some of the ideas that come out of this meeting tonight will be shared with the developer as well. Then the next step, probably sometime in October, we don't have a date yet, will be a Board of Selectmen meeting. this is an important one. That's when the Board of Selectmen will decide whether or not to pursue the proposal, whether it's worthy of further consideration or whether they just think it should be set aside. If the selectmen decide to pursue the proposal, the next step is planning board meetings. I don't have the dates for them yet. They'll be advertised, they'll be posted to the website. And I can't even tell you at this point what those meetings would be, whether it be a site plan review or a special permit review. All of that will come as the project gets more developed. Then the next step after that would be Conservation Commission meetings. Whatever is proposed, if there's a development that goes through down here, any development that's greater than disturbs more than an acre of land requires the Conservation Commission to review the stormwater. So another opportunity for public input. And then maybe the most important step, assuming the project is pursued by the selectmen, makes it through the planning board proposal, has a well-developed plan, gets through the conservation review, the next step is town meeting. And at that point, every voter in town gets to weigh in on whether they want to see that project go forward. For any project to go forward that involves town-owned land that would be sold or rented to a developer, we need 2/3 votes at town meeting. So, and then if that happens and 2/3 of town meeting vote in favor of a specific proposal, the next step is it goes back to the Board of Selectmen for them to consider the property transfer that would have been authorized at that point by town meeting. So all of these steps are all opportunities for input along the way. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
We've already had a review, the contractor has submitted a response to your request for a proposal. Can that change in any significant way?
Yes, it can. It can. So when the request for proposals was written very carefully so that we asked for a concept plan, an initial thought of what a developer wanted to do with the property. If we had received multiple proposals, then we would have still allowed changes, but we would have had to weigh those changes against each other and not make a decision until we got to that final proposal. Because we only received one proposal, it's actually much easier to change the proposal because there's no one that developer is bidding against. So the RFP was designed with the intention that we receive a concept plan and then working with the planning board and the staff of the planning department, we refine that plan. If you can think back to University Station, this is the procedure that was followed there. The developers began meeting with the town in mid-2011, I think it was, and worked with them for over a year before they were ready to bring a plan to the planning board. And then the planning board reviewed it for maybe another 9 months before it went to town meeting. And in all that time, the development plans went from a very simple concept to a very detailed plan that could be sent for building permits. So we're looking to do something similar here, assuming the selectmen find the proposal worthy of pursuit. If they don't, then there'll be another decision whether to send out another request for proposals or whether to do something different. So all of that discussion will occur at the selectmen meeting. Yes?
How typical is it to only get back one response for an RFP? That's usually a disappointing response.
It's not surprising in this case. We did have some other developers who took a look at it, but because this one property owner owns abutting land, it was far more economically feasible for that property owner to work with the town land next door than for a different property, a different developer. So we had a couple of developers who actually, I think, looked into whether they could purchase some of the some of the properties next door. And when they found they couldn't, they didn't submit proposals.
What makes it more affordable for the developer who's already there?
Well, it's more affordable because he doesn't have to acquire the land from another private party. So developer A owns abutting properties. All of these properties are fairly small, and for a cohesive development, you want to amass properties so that you can build across lines and fit in the parking and change the shapes. So for developer B to do that, he would need to buy parcels from developer A. And since developer A is interested in going forward, they're not willing to sell the properties at a low enough price to make it worthwhile to us developers. So I think that's the reason we probably only got one. We did have a couple of other developers who were interested, considered it, and found that it just wasn't economic.
Perhaps it's in this RFP. What binds the developer to keeping this plan? Right now it's a CDS, but could that turn into 28 more apartments?
Not without approval. So whatever proposal eventually is reviewed by the selectmen, and the proposal can change. By the time it gets to town meeting, I should put it that way, so if the selectmen decide to pursue it, and if the planning board helps to develop a proposal that makes sense and can receive approvals, and it gets to town meeting, and town meeting decides to support it, there will be a development agreement that's very specific, that only allows for development exactly as it's proposed. The planning board decision also is for the development as proposed. Now, uses can change down the line. For instance, I'm trying to think of a recent example of something that, well, in Islington Center, that's a perfect example. So the Petruzziello building at 517, 523, right now, that's the Blue, 317, 323. That's the Blue Heart Tavern and the Gillis Law Office. Two different buildings on two different parcels. Those parcels have now been combined and a new building has been built there, or is about to be built there. That could not be done without approvals. So in that case, the developer came to the planning board and requested the approvals that they needed. They had to show plans that the planning board found acceptable, and they eventually designed a building and received that approval. And anyone who was involved in that is aware that it was not a quick review. The developer didn't just hand plans and the planning board accepted it. The plans changed significantly.
Yeah, to follow on this question, actually, however, if the whole Islington town is one big project holding upheaval, huge risk that if they're going to change, the town is not going to hold everything back.
So the way we would do this is much like we do University Station. There was a plan, and that plan was approved, and the developer is entitled to develop according to that plan. If they wanted to do something different later on, they would have to come back to the town and request a new approval. And that could be in the form of a new special permit, or we could require it to go back for a town meeting vote. So those are details that we still would have to work out if we get to that point. If the selectmen
The
pursue this.
risk at the center of town is much greater because if there is a project that is already demolished and started, they want to change it, the town is not going to hold them like they held the University Ave project.
They're not going to hold it.
Well, you want to keep the town in the middle of the town for how many years in demo, right?
Well, I think we wouldn't get to the level where there was a project that got started and not finished. We would have ironclad agreements before shovels went in the ground. I think we would protect against that.
Why are we even, what was the town's motivation of the community center wanting to redevelop that?
So it's a
Nora?
possibility.
Can you just, that's the fifth question. I heard 4 out of 5. Can you just repeat the question for the rest of us,
Oh,
please?
sure, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so this last question was, why would the town consider redeveloping the Islington Community Center? So this request for proposals is to consider 4 parcels, all town-owned, that are all in Islington Center, that are all surrounded by another developer's property, who has expressed interest in developing. We have a lot of things that have been going on in Islington Center lately that are catalysts for development. We had Morrison Park improved over the last few years. We now have a new fire station, and we have a new commercial development going on across the street here. It seemed like an ideal opportunity to look at redeveloping the whole area at the same time. When you do piecemeal development, you lose the opportunity to make significant changes. So we're looking at this and saying, if it works and it's something positive, we should go forward with it now, because we'll never have this opportunity again. If it doesn't work, if it's not positive for the community, we don't have any obligation to go forward with this.
Is there a ballpark estimate as to how much income is derived from the community centre for the town of Westwood?
I believe the income pretty much covers the maintenance, if that. So the question there was how much income is derived from the community center. We have one paid lease at the community center, and that's to Mother's Morning Out. And that pretty much almost covers, there's a little bit of a deficit, it almost covers the annual maintenance of that building.
Of the entire building?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, I'm glad we're doing this, but it feels to me like this is the type of thing we should have done 2 years ago, maybe, before Mr. Petruzziello was invited to Westwood and before the town meeting where the zoning was changed, because now the townspeople have far fewer options. I know there's all kinds of options, but I've been through a year of it with 301 to 323. I know exactly how it works now, And I think that this is what the residents of the town should have been asked to do 2 years ago, not we're closing the barn door after the horses have gotten out, you know?
I have to disagree. I don't think we were in a position to do this. What you were through over the last year was a private development. It did not involve town property. So each of you, as a property owner, has the right to develop your property in accordance with the zoning. That private property owner had the right to develop their property in accordance with zoning, and they did that. We are having this visioning center because we now have an opportunity to think about what we want to do with the property that we own, if anything. So I think I don't want to focus specifically on this property tonight, on the proposal. What I want to do is focus on the open space, the opportunities, and have you look at it, envision yourself as a developer, and tell us what it is you would do with it if you had an opportunity. And that could be no changes at all. It could be leaving exactly as it is. It could be doing exactly what the developer proposes, or it could be anything in between. So why don't you start talking amongst yourselves at the small tables? I'll take a couple more questions, and then Abby and I will walk around to answer any questions that you have. Mike Gillette is also here.
It's worth it.
Right now, we have, the question is how much is the Islington Community Center used for nonprofit events? Right now, a large portion of
Right there.
a large portion of that building is used by MMO on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. There's also an Office of Youth and Family Services, and there are community spaces in there as well that are used by the Youth and Family Services and by the Recreation Commission for several activities. We are currently also offering the space to Girl Scouts to hold meetings while their new meeting house is being developed next to the Hanlon School. So there have been meetings, very few, probably 2 a month by the Girl Scouts. That's correct. That's correct. It just barely comes to maintenance. In fact, we will have a deficit. Because maintenance is not just an annual maintenance, but it's capital improvements to a building as well. So it's replacing the boiler, it's painting the building, it's covering the heat, it's covering the janitorial costs. I'm sorry.
Just saying, in addition to a very large amount of money that we're getting very regularly, it's also paying free rent, or there is free rent for cable services.
That's correct. So some of you may have been involved back, it was more than 10 years ago. Was it 15 when the town decided to purchase the Islington Community Center? The reason the town stepped in and purchased it, the property was for sale. We wanted to see MMO not lose its home, and the purchase price was such that it was financially a better deal than not for the town to buy. The town had a space need, and the price was very favorable to the town, and we were able to keep MMO. It was never promised that that would be forever, but we still would like to keep MMO in the town if it's possible. So one of the requirements of the proposal was that we asked the developer to see what they could do to keep MMO in Islington Center. But I'd like to talk more about the activity that we're proposing tonight. If you have other questions about the development proposal, please come to the meeting of the task force on the 8th where we discussed.
I just want to ask about the timeline. So thinking about all the things that have to happen, what's the expected timeline on when the last one will happen, and then how long it would take to start the building? So thinking about all of this and the project with the bridge, like timeline.
At the best, I think we are still hopeful that we would go to town meeting in the spring of 2017. But that will be dependent on what the development proposal looks like. If the selectmen decide to pursue it, what is brought to the planning board and how involved it is, and what the planning board's concerns are, what the residents' concerns are, what the conservation concerns are. So it's open-ended, but at best, the soonest that would happen would be in May 2017. We'd receive town meeting approval. If it did then, it would still have to go back to the selectmen for their disposition before it went forward. So at best, construction could start in the summer of 2017. It could be much later than that, if at all. So that's a question about the proposal, so I'd really like to stick to our mission here tonight. Is vision, yes.
Could you show us the screen that has the green space, the open space?
Yes. This one here?
Yeah.
So that's the plan that's on your table right now. And And what we're focusing on tonight are the parcels that the town has in the RFP, as well as the parcels that are adjacent to those that this developer owns. This is to help us look at the proposal that's before us and compare it to the proposals that you submit. So there was a question about, is it unusual for only one proposal to come out? You'll have that one proposal balanced against all the others.
A question on the upper green space.
Up here?
Yeah. The residential property on School Street,
Yes.
it has all the trees next to it, behind it. It's actually owned by.
Yes,
the
so
developer.
this right here is the, consider an imaginary line right there.
It's the Taylor Shop.
That is the Taylor Shop property, and the
Right.
Taylor Shop is an unusual shape.
Right.
It's almost like an S, and it's residentially zoned, and it has a portion that shows trees on it right now.
That's right, but that is development space for the developer.
Yes, it is. It's owned by the developer. It's not necessarily developable for non-residential uses, though. In order to use that for a non-residential use, it would either have to be a use that is consistent with the current use at Taylor Shop, or it would have to be a use that received a special permit from the zoning board to change one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. And the only use that can go in there by right, other than something very similar to a Taylor Shop, would be a residential use.
The four properties that you're talking about, are they also zoned so that whoever buys them, Truciella or whoever else, they can do the same thing? Businesses on the bottom and 16, 18, 24 apartments on top?
All of the town-owned properties are within the local business B district, which allows commercial development, and they're also within the flexible multiple use overlay district 6, which allows commercial development with residential or office above.
So if Petruziello or whoever else buys those properties, they can do what Petruziello is doing in the other places, put as many apartments as they can fit into it?
No, they could not put as many as they can fit into it, but they could put as many as they receive a
Come on,
permit.
Nora, just repeat the question, please.
Yes, I'm sorry. So the question was, what is the zoning of all the four town-owned parcels? And could a developer put a mixed-use parcel with as many apartments as they could fit into? And the answer to that is, the mixed-use zoning, the FMUOD zoning applies to all of the town-owned parcels. And a developer who wants to take advantage of that and not just build under the underlying commercial zone would have to go to the planning board to obtain a special permit. The special permit is not a by right development. There's a high level of scrutiny and it requires the planning board to grant discretionary approval. What they could do on any of those parcels is develop a commercial property, which does not require a special permit. Zones for commercial use.
Just a quick follow-up on his question about the area behind, what is it, 11 School Street? Or
9 School Street.
9 School Street, under the trees. So that's zone, you're saying that's residential.
Residential, so the commercial,
Residential includes apartments.
that is, I believe is general residential, and I believe it allows single or two-family housing by right on that parcel. Because the parcel has been used for many years for commercial use, it also allows commercial use that's similar in nature to the existing use.
Single or two-family housing, is that apartments? Can that be?
I would not consider a two-family apartment. It's a two-family structure. It could be owner-occupied on one side, or it could be renter-occupied on both sides. But a single-family house or a two-family house, that's not an apartment. If a developer wanted to put apartments on that property, it would need to be rezoned. It is not currently zoned so that it could allow apartments. That property is not part of the FMUOD district. It's residentially zoned only. Yes?
Do you know of another town that has sold its center and which is going to change the character of it as much as this is, if this proposal were to go through? Is there another town that has actually sold the center of town?
Offhand, I don't know of another town that owns the center of town. I don't know of another town that purchased a building like the ICC and has an opportunity to do this. So offhand,
I know
I
there's
don't
a lot
know.
of centers of towns that I've been to that have plenty of land, but I don't know if any's selling it. And they could for tax purposes, I'm sure, but I haven't seen that done. And this is gonna change the character of, at least, I live on School Street, so tremendous. And I think it's adversely gonna affect our values. I may be wrong, you may feel foolish, but I believe.
And that's what we're here to discuss tonight. What is it that you would like to see here? So I've heard what the developer would like to see, and I've heard what people would not like to see. But what I haven't heard is what everyone would like Islington Center to do. So this is our opportunity to see just that. What would you like to have Islington Center do?
Is this a money issue for the town? I mean, we can't even do this if we don't know what, is the town trying to make money off this property, or they can't afford it, or what?
The RFP was released to obtain creative ideas for what to do with our town center. We have an opportunity for development in the area. We're going to consider uses that involve multiple properties.
But is
The
it
time to
money?
do that is while those properties are not otherwise developed. Once we allow property owners to develop their parcels on their own, we lose that opportunity. So it's an opportunity to think about it, consider it, and either pursue it or decide not to. So it's a question that's before the town, and you are all invited to participate in that question. Tell us how you would answer it. Dave?
Yeah, Nora, I just wondered if you had a sort of a suggested timeline tonight, because I would
Yes.
really like to hear people's ideas. I'm on the planning board, people don't know, and I'd really like to hear the ideas that people come up with for starting from a blank slate, what they'd like to see.
We would too.
I
So
know
what
we
I'd
have
like
lots
to do
of-
is recommend that you take the next 20 minutes to discuss the opportunities and constraints on the parcels, and you can be playing around with the puzzle pieces as you're doing that. After you've done that for a few minutes, move on to developing the site. We'll walk around and answer any questions. Yes, I will. So here it is on the screen of step one, the items that you should consider. Please take 20 minutes.
That's how they sold it 15 years ago.
There's a house here. These folks here, they actually drive.
This is the driver that's selling
And retaining the steeple, if that's...
It's 5 or 5.
It's not just the post office, it's everything, it's that whole block. Yeah. So, okay, I don't know.
The one here, yeah.
What to do with the library? I don't know about, I don't talk about the
That's what
And the MMO, Town of Westwood actually owns this parcel of land, but it's a very odd.
They have a lease, they may be
right up on my grass.
with this table right up front. If you'd like to just give us some thoughts, you're welcome to show us your plan, or you can just point out on here what your thoughts are. Do you want to come up and use the microphone?
Okay, so we didn't like the idea of a really big CVS because there's already one in Dedham. So smaller scale, we were thinking the CVS could go on this corner with the residential above, and then we would have some combination of shops here that were commercial, but the steeple would go on top of that, so we all could see it. It'd still be a prominent part of our vision when we drive around the corner. So maybe some coffee shop or something here, so next to the library, and then the community center would be here with parking in the middle, just to allow people maybe to come in this way, so there wasn't so much traffic by the MMO, just keeping that kind of separate, but still allowing access from maybe the library over to the shops. Is anything?
Well, we talked about also potentially underground parking there to try and get more, because you've got great differential between Washington Street.
Right, maybe some underground parking on this side of the street as well. I think parking is a big issue here, especially because you have the library and the preschool there, so there's lots of concerns with little kids and parking lot. And we love the idea of more green spaces here.
Just an idea, if you move CVS to the other side, that would alleviate the pressure on the parking lots, because now we could park on the other side of the...
Right, because there's already that parking there.
Correct. That's a good thought.
Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. We ask representative from this table here to come up next. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
We don't have full agreement. but some agree.
Not yet.
Not yet, right. I think probably more than half the table are pretty much don't want to see the community center go. Because for two reasons. Initially, the reason the town sold everybody on buying that is the aesthetic of the town center too. I mean, we kind of like totally fluffed over it. So that's the way the steeple is, the way it looks. Pretty much you can see it as the middle of that intersection from four sides, anywhere you go. And that kind of was a high point, what we've been talking about. The other point also half the table kind of agreed to, is that we really don't have a lot of faith that whatever plan gets approved in order to get the town to sell its property will be stopped. Because history, very recent, shown that that's not going to be the case. Especially if you have a place where the whole center of town now is demolished, basically. Whoever owned that is going to say, well, I have a new idea. I cannot make economic sense of what the original plan is. That's the new plan. The town really don't have a lot of leverage to change it. Once that's demolished, it's demolished.
If I could just point out, if we go forward with a proposal here, the town is selling land. The town can put into its agreement to sell the land requirements that the proposal be developed as approved. So there are opportunities for iron about agreements, and I wouldn't recommend that the town go forward without those. So I understand where you have concern with that, but that's something that would have to be addressed if we move ahead.
I mean, realistic, right? It's, you demolish, you can, all of a sudden, you can wait for 3 years, or you can wait for 5 years. That's what it's going to be. So now the next, we actually talked mostly about this one, but then you had some points that I kind of forgot. But the other stuff, a lot of kind of agreement on, things that are nice would be things like restaurants, coffee shops, stuff that keeps people in a long time. Things like an insurance agency, businesses that really close at 5 don't do much to town centers. So that's kind of what we did. And I think somebody else should come and get the rest of it.
Community center, like the library, and
yes.
coffee shop in that, like the town retaining that, and making the church the library center, and a coffee shop inside of it, and making it something that people can go, some green space, that people really go there and spend time there.
Great idea. All right. And now can we have someone from this table come up and share your ideas?
Sure. All right, so
steep. But I guess we're in agreement that the existing ICC would probably have to get knocked down because it's falling apart. And probably the same with Wentworth Hall. But replace those basically with that same design, just maybe here on the corner, so it's got that same aesthetic. And put the CVS over here, if it can fit. Maybe has to shrunk a little bit. This, I think we were generally okay with. The size is a little daunting, but you gotta have some apartments to support some businesses. Yeah, a lot of talk about the difference between would it be better to have condos instead of apartments, so people have kind of more of a vested interest in the community. We had questions about the revenue there. Tax revenue, is it different? I think probably not. But, and then in terms of putting the Blue Heart Tavern over here, I think we were kind of opposed to it, thinking it's nice to think of a tavern right down the street, but having it in somebody's backyard, it's probably not going to work. So maybe that would be the place for a little green space, where it is right now. And then the other concern we had was that, legal or not, when you have a ball game going on here, you've got people parking over here in the CVS parking. That's just the way it is. And they don't turn people away, like I said. So what's going to happen in the future when there's a big ball game and somebody else owns all that property? Where is all that overflow parking going to go? There's no more municipal lot going on.
Great.
Did I get it?
All right, terrific. How about this table back here? We have a representative?
So we kind of did two things. We went through and brainstormed a lot of the ideas and opportunities. And then we brainstormed like on the map where certain things would go. So the big things that we were talking about, like common space and green space came up a lot, but parks, town pool, town common, a community center developed in an alternative way, recreational amenity for Islington, like the Civic Center in Norwood, that could also be a source of revenue. Open parks, trees, park benches. We like the steeple, the charm of the village feel. There's debate about a coffee shop. And then we had some ideas about how things might be moved around.
So we like the idea of keeping the library building and the MMO building. And so we were thinking if we did like the MMO over here and make this all green space, maybe a gazebo, park benches, over the library over here, or MMO over here, so there's parking around it, easier for parents to their children, or make this all green space, or we
kind of like the idea of also of a big green space, a big common right in the center that people would see as they come in. So that was another really appealing idea, even though we like the look of the community center, but maybe also extending the green space down the entire road with like a nice walkway and nice lighting, so that maybe parking is down over by the bridge where there's not as much going on. And if we could entice people to park there and walk along with some seats, so that if, benches, maybe some spots near the library where you could take a book out and go sit out in a hammock in the green space. Just things that would make it really feel like a community center where people are coming out of their homes. And also with traffic being such an issue, we hear it over and over, encouraging people to do that walk, to make it nice so that people are more willing to walk, make it wide enough so that, strollers and wheelchairs and a family of however many people can walk next to each other talking, well lit at night so you don't don't trip, all those things. But extend the green space idea, kind of extended the length of the street.
Terrific. More great ideas. Thank you very much. The table in the back, please.
So we had some similar ideas about a lot of green space, and I think we begin by looking at this as we have all this green space available, and how do we protect that? And I think starting at the outside of this, let's have raised crosswalks to get to the ball field. So have like a crosswalk here, here, and then reinforce the one near the playground. So you begin by circling this area with protected crosswalks, so that the fact is people are going to cut across here anyway. Give them a safer way to do that. And then anchor this center with, keep the community center here, but improve it, keep the steeple. On this corner, the anchor would be maybe the Hart Tavern attached to a larger structure, so that it would be like a brew pub or a gastro pub or something, some sort of a restaurant that involves alcohol. So you have kind of a couple of these key anchors here. I think the library may be shifting that down here and then filling in the space here with more retail shops, things like coffee shops, the kind of stuff people have been talking about there. And then developing this green space into more of a campus, so kind of having like a linear park along here. I think someone else talked about you'd be able to have a sidewalk and then have green space here that would come into a center where there's like a gazebo or something. And then the smaller bits, you have the pub here, you have perhaps a couple of condos or some kind of residential component back here that's a pathway out to the center, and some other building here, but kind of a campus feel, so there are these walkways through and a central gazebo. Same way over here, have smaller buildings, but a kind of campus feel with a greenway connecting things. And the only thing missing from this is where you can park. So what if you could take this entire space and, like Boston Common, put a large underground parking garage there. So you have the underground parking garage with exits at the corners. People can come up and walk across here or use the new crosswalk down here. All the cars are under here. You have this large campus-like green space area that would be anchored by some retail here, but would really be a great combination thing to do. And that's all I have.
Great. All right, we're ready for this table over here in the center. Would you like to come present your ideas?
This area. We actually didn't talk about the idea of moving CVS somewhere else, so we kind of stuck with the same plan of this here. But we did have a lot of concern with parking here. Right now it's really crazy. Lots of times of the day when the school's getting out, it's very busy where story times, things like that at the library. Or a lot of times when the traffic's coming out here, maybe they need a light there or something, but just another way for those busy times to flow better. So we seem to have a lot of concern for the traffic and how it's going to move. But we liked the idea that they're both not the branch, but the other place is sort of an eyesore. We like that everything's going to be updated and it will look more like a center. So that was a positive thing. And also just the revenue that we'll be bringing in for community space. There are a lot of meetings there. It would be a very sad loss if they didn't keep that building. So we did think, though, we noticed the other properties in Dedham that he has, and that those are very close to the street. So we really wanted to bring attention to there being enough buffer space. We didn't talk a lot about green space around, but we did talk about who will be living in the apartments, and there was some concern that the apartments that go here, that the people, some people wanted more families, and that would create more of a community rather than looks like a lot of single properties. We also thought with parking, with all that going on there, that it would just be scary. You know, that there's the park doesn't have a lot of parking. So anyway, just the whole thing about how congested this is becoming, and especially there's, he's going to do apartments, but right now we've got that big senior housing going on Claventry. We have next to Mercer, I don't know how many apartments are there. Those apartments, we've got Zavarian getting out, where a lot of cars, and then if you look across down East Street further to where like Analog, either in the morning when everyone's coming to work, or at rush hour at the end of the day, these are hugely congested area, you know, that are just going to get worse and worse. So, and then also the commuters at the train station. So that was also a concern. We weren't sure about the. Right now, I guess there's going to be. It looked like there was sidewalks that were okay on the side, but we weren't sure on the street. I think that if there were sidewalks, large, that kind of thing. So I guess traffic was discussed a lot. And notes. I think that was it. Yeah. That's it. That's enough. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry about that. All right, and now this table back here in the corner.
So we had some similar ideas that have been presented before. First, we thought we'd keep the community center. It is the only public building in town that actually breaks even. I think all the other buildings cost us money. This one, it doesn't really cost us much. But if it were to come down, we thought that this would be a nice area for green space, park, what have you, and still maintain a building here for a community center on the side. Across the street, we're thinking keeping parking here and possibly have maybe some senior living on the second floor of the building here, and then over here, I think that's zoned for residential though, so maybe that could be somebody's residence there, or maybe they could have the Blue Heart there and do something with that, maybe as a coffee shop or a beer house, or who knows, something like that. And I think that's pretty much it. Did I leave something out? That's it. Okay.
All right. Well, good ideas. We've got 2 tables left. And I have a representative from the table in the back there.
Noticing a pattern here. Michael McCusker from Brookville Drive. We actually had a lot of great ideas, a lot of people very vocal. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. As soon as they found out there was a presentation to be made, everybody left me, including my wife. What we were talking about is, on this corner here where the community center is for the town to hang on to that property, keep it as a community center, incorporate the library and the MMO into it, and to keep that as is for community meeting space, possibly a theater, maybe a theater company could come in, something for the town to keep in the town. We hated the idea of a CVS in component, and that's exactly where it would go because it's the most valuable piece of property of all. Across the street, we were okay with the idea of what he has proposed over here. People want to see a restaurant, a gastro pub, something that's going to keep the neighborhood going after 8 o'clock. Down this way to the parking, we decided that we need that parking. There's no way, everyone's talking about green space and everything. I love the idea. The problem is it might look big here, but when you get down there, everything's very tight. And we just we just don't have the luxury of the green space down there. You know, we're trying to fit in a center of town, we just don't have the luxury of green space. We've got the ball field, we've got the playground up here. Other than that, we don't have a lot of space left for any green space. I love the idea of a promenade down. I don't know if we can get all the way down to the bridge. It seems pretty ambitious. And I think maybe that the Roach Brothers might be, it's just a little tough to have the promenade just go past the bridge. You know, people just might not enjoy the view. Not to say it's not beautiful. But like to say, keep this owned by Westwood. Over here, keep the parking lot, so basically don't sell any buildings. Town home, keep the parking lot open, build a community center, incorporating everything we want, the library, the MMO, and I think we get a winner there. Thank you very much.
Last table to turn from. You have a representative from this table here.
Pretty much we agree with every table that's out there. So we're just gonna be repeating ourselves.
All right, nothing new to add?
Hold on property.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any thoughts that came up since you made your presentation? Hearing some others, anything else you'd like to add? All right, if not, I'd like to ask you to do two things. One, if you can, those of you who have the puzzle pieces, if you can just place them on the maps the way you'd like them at the end. I'm going to come around and glue them so that we have those maps to take back with us as we work on them. And then the other thing I'm going to ask you all to do, West Cat is very helpful. I'd like you all to ask your neighbors to take a look at this West Cat. It'll be viewed on the local stations. It's also available on westcat.tv. We'd love to have all of your neighbors hear about what your thoughts are and weigh in. They can do that by sending emails or letters to my attention or to Abby's games. So our intent here is to get as many people participating in this exercise as possible. I can't thank you enough for coming out. It's great to hear the energy and the enthusiasm, and we'll carry your ideas forward. Also, don't forget, September 8th is the court date if you want to weigh in on the specific proposals. So thank you all very much for coming tonight. If you have any questions, give us a call, send us an email.